This is the 1.4 homework help video. So you are getting this homework in class. It's not due for a couple of days, but just in case you need some extra help or some examples worked out so that you can work on your homework, that's why you should be watching this video or coming in for tutoring. So if you look here, what I've done is I've cut the first section of your homework out and inserted it. You guys are doing the even problems, so I'm going to work the odd problems as examples for you. So I'm looking at number 1. The first thing that I'm going to do is rewrite it so that I have a little bit more room. It is 4x plus y equals 7. And if you notice in the instructions here, we are solving all of these equations for y. So we want to get y by itself. So number 1 and number 2 are similar, so if you're struggling with number 2, hopefully this will help. So notice here that we have y, and we're doing 4x plus y equals 7. So if you're trying to isolate y, you want to get that 4x to the other side by doing the opposite. And the opposite of positive is negative. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Now, just like we've been talking about for the last 2 days, positive and negative 4x cancel and I bring down my y. But on the left side, you can't actually subtract 4x from 7 because they're not like terms. So remember, we just copy the problem down. So we bring down our 7 and we have minus 4x. And now you have solved for y. You got y by itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at number 3. So obviously number 3 and number 4 are similar. So I'm looking at 3. I'm going to rewrite it here so that I have a little bit more room. I have 3y minus 15x equals 12. And once again, we're trying to get y by itself. So I start with the minus 15. The opposite of minus 15 is plus 15x. So I'm going to add 15x to both sides. Positive and negative 15x cancel, and I bring down my 3y. Once again, don't forget, you can't actually do 12 plus 15x, so you're just going to copy it down. So we have 12 plus 15x. Alright, so unlike the last problem, we still have something we have to deal with here. Notice 3 is being multiplied by y, so y is not by itself yet. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 would be to divide. Now don't forget, you have to divide every single piece of the equation by 3. So 3 divided by 3 makes 1y. And then on this other side, 12 divided by 3 becomes 4. And 15x divided by 3 becomes positive 5x. And once again, you have now isolated y. And you can move on. Okay, looking at number 5. Number 5 is similar to the one that we just did, only we have a negative in front of x. So we have 7x minus y equals 35. So we're still trying to get y by itself, so we're going to deal with the 7x first. The opposite of positive is negative, so I subtract 7x from both sides. When I do that, 7x and negative 7x cancel, and I bring down my minus y, and that equals 35 minus 7x. Now, we talked about this the first week of school, this little negative in front of y. It's like negative 1y. So that negative 1 is being multiplied by y, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide everything by negative 1. Don't forget, every single term has to be divided. The y, the 35, and the negative 7x. Notice I put them all over negative 1. Now, a negative divided by a negative will make that positive y. A positive 35 divided by a negative 1 would make that negative 35. A negative 7x divided by negative 1 would make it positive 7x. So I would accept the answer written like this, negative 35 plus 7x, or you might see me write it with the 7x first and have it as 7x minus 35, which is also correct. Okay. So hopefully after watching the examples for 1, 3, and 5, you're able to complete 2, 4, and 6. If any of those are still giving you trouble, you need to come in and get some tutoring so that you make sure you have your homework completed. Let's go ahead and look at the next section. These problems are similar to the ones that we just did. However, instead of solving for y, we are now solving for x. And remember, that information is always going to be given to you right here in the instructions. So when I look at number 7, it is very similar to the one that we did on our notes. It says y equals 5x minus 2x. And hopefully you guys are all happy because you notice that 5x minus 2x, those are like terms. So we can go ahead and subtract. So we have y equals 3x. Now, x is still not alone. It's being multiplied by 3, and the opposite of multiplying by 3 would be to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 makes 1x, and we know that x would equal y divided by 3 then. Now, I noticed that some of you don't like it when the expression or like the bigger part of the equation is on the left. So if you wanted to rewrite this as x equals y divided by 3, this is also correct. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 9. So for number 9, we have b equals 3x plus 9xy. Okay. So we've been working on this. We worked on some of these examples in your notes, and this was kind of something new. We notice here that 3x plus 9xy. Unlike the problem right above it, these are not like terms. This y makes them not like terms. They have to have the same variables or combination of variables in order to add or subtract them. So if I'm trying to get x by itself and x is, with both of these, I need to somehow undo the multiplication that occurred that made it part of both of these terms. And we talked about the fact that the operation that you could do is called factoring. So factoring is just where you divide out a common term, a common factor. So in this case, I'm going to divide everything by x on this right side of the equation and rewrite it as its multiplication problem. So 3x divided by x is 3. 9xy divided by x is 9y. Now notice all I've done is I have undone distribution. If I was to multiply this x back into this binomial, it would equal 3x plus 9xy. Okay? The reason I did this is because now I can get x by itself. Because what's the opposite of multiplying? It's to divide. So I'm going to divide by 3 plus 9y on both sides. Now remember, anything divided by itself, even a binomial, makes 1. So now I've got x all by itself on one side, and on the other side I have b divided by 3 plus 9y. And this would be my final answer now that I've got x all by itself. Okay, so that was 9. It's very similar to 10, so you might want to pause the video and do 10 now if you're working on your homework. And I'm going to go ahead and work number 11. So for number 11, we have p equals 4x plus qx minus 5. We did one like this on your notes. So when you have more than one term on the right, like we have a 4x plus a qx minus a 5, notice that 5 doesn't belong. It's not similar to what we're looking at. So I want to go ahead and move it to the other side first. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is adding 5. And positive and negative 5 will cancel. And over here I have p plus 5 equals, and then I'm going to bring all this stuff back down. So I have 4x plus qx. Okay, so now this looks very similar to the last one we did. Notice that you have two terms that have x's with them, but they're not like terms because this has a qx. So to get that x Separated from those terms, I'm going to factor. I'm going to undo distribution. So when I undo that, I'm dividing that x off of those terms, and I'll be left with 4 plus q. And then we have our x in the front now. Now it's all easier for us because we can just use our inverse operations. And remember, we're going to divide by 4 plus q. Those will cancel. And whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. And now we have x by itself. X equals p plus 5 over 4 plus q. Okay. This homework assignment, like I said, you have a couple of days to complete it. So if this video did not help clarify and your notes aren't helping, then you need to come in and get some extra help, one-on-one or in our small group tutorials. And I will see you guys in class.